insight about how our relatively small community group based in the Pilbara is making some big waves within the resources sector. How we can make the resources sector not only seen to be green, but really become custodians for the land and take responsibility for the protection and reclamation of some of our most valuable landscapes. In the Pilbara, conjures up big images, things that are really big. We have big machines, big ports, big trains, and I would say big profits, but they seem to be getting slightly smaller at the moment. In addition to our resources sector, we also have 52 pastoral stations producing beef for the export and domestic markets. We are home to some of the most significant areas in Aboriginal and European history within the region. We also have unique conservation areas with expansive and historically significant marine and coastal environments, land-based national parks, and also the spectacular beauty of 3 deserts. But all of this, the mining, the pastoral, the heritage, the recreation and the tourism, are all under constant threat from enemies with no respect for boundaries, no respect for your degree of wealth or your production system. And from my point of view, we're under threat from weeds. The Pilbara has some of the worst weeds considering our semi-arid environment. We have 300,000 hectares of mesquite, including the single largest infestation dominated of 45,000 hectares of nothing but wall-to-wall mesquite. That's in the middle there. 680 kilometres of our rivers are infested with Parkinsonia. We have 5 localised infestations of cactus. We have Calotropis, or rubber bush as it's sometimes known, rapidly spreading from the north, currently estimated to cover about 1.5 million hectares of the Pilbara. We also have 2 very small localised infestations of bellyache bush. And who we are. The Pilbara Mesquite Management Committee is a community group that has been operating in the Pilbara since 2001. We work with all land managers to battle weeds on pastoral leases, on mining tenements, and also on conservation estates. Our group spent much of our early years in research, but in 2007 we began to transform into a group that could help to achieve real on-ground outcomes in the battle against weeds. We started with a focus on mesquite, but pretty soon we transformed and to broaden and include a range of other weeds within our group. We did struggle in the start. We struggled to meet a quorum at our biannual meetings. We struggled for funding. We also struggled to employ somebody in Karratha. Now things are completely different. We actually have a membership of 38 representatives from 27 different pastoral, mining, government and community organisations. Whilst the base 60% of our core funding is still competitively gained through external funding projects, we're currently leveraging about $1.1 million out of the resources sector annually. We have and continue to have an outstanding relationship with our major sponsor for the past 7 years, which is Rangelands NRM, who also sponsored me to come to the conference, so thank you. They've actually sponsored us through some of the most competitive times in the Pilbara, but they've seen trust and they've valued in what we can provide for them. The way we're repaying what their investment is in our group is by providing significant action on the ground and actually reducing weedy threats across the region and leveraging the investment from the resource companies that's being directed straight into strategic, functional weed management programs. But where did we start? Our first partnership with the resource companies started with CITIC Pacific Mining and their Sino Iron project at Marty Station. Before the mine even received approval to go ahead, conversations with then Department of Environment and Conservation, now Department of Parks and Wildlife, at a local level, had been going on about the massive issue that mesquite was causing at Marty, the impacts of it on the landscape, but also the opportunities that could come out of a partnership with CITIC Pacific Mining. A host of recommendations were put into a state conservation agreement to offset the impacts of what was to be developed as a Cape Preston port. The commitment that was put into the original agreement, or suggested in the original agreement, was $3 million over 10 years to go directly into weed management on Marty Station. Much to our surprise, but I guess also to our delight, was the fact that that got signed off without question. And The first year of the program commenced in 2011, 2 years after we initially started conversations, but also 2 years earlier than anybody had ever anticipated. So what we did, we used this one partnership. In the first year, CITIC Pacific Mining gave us $150,000 to undertake a strategic weed management program at Marty, the first one. We undertook the program, got some great results out of the mapping from it. Using the success that we had out of that one program, we took this to other resource companies within the Pilbara to show them what a great opportunity they had to invest in not only our group, but also into excellent weed management programs that were having great results on ground. What was an initial commitment of $150,000 in 2011 by CITIC Pacific Mining has now transformed into the annual investment of over $1.1 million by our resource company partners. So how do we do it? We take great pleasure in using peer pressure to get resource companies involved in and committing to weed management programs. We first started with mesquite. Why not? It's our strength. We used the relationship and the program that we'd built with CITIC Pacific Mining to, what I deem politely but subconsciously, encourage other resource companies to get involved, to get their act together and to start meeting their legal and social obligations in terms of weed management. We made sure that from that first year of work we did at CITIC Pacific Mining, we had solid figures, we had solid mapping, and we actually could show the benefits our programs were having on ground. And we took this to other resource companies. The other thing that we managed to do was to, at every opportunity, put CITIC Pacific's name up as one of the first mining companies in the Pilbara to actually invest in these large-scale weed management programs. Mind you, at this stage, CITIC Pacific Mining were not even thought of as a competitor in the iron ore business. Would you know it, the next year, Rio Tinto found some money, and so did BHP, Chevron Australia, and finally Onslow Salt came on board. We now have what we're calling the West Pilbara Weed Alliance, where we're bringing all land managers together, whether they be pastoral, mining, conservation, and we're bringing them together to collaborate on cross-tenure weed management programs in the coastal landscape. Using the lessons that we learned from our mesquite programs, we decided to diversify. We moved out into the East Pilbara, where there's a Parkinsonia infestation that is likely to impact on the world-renowned Fortescue Marsh. Our program was aimed at trying to eradicate as much of the Parkinsonia as we can before it actually gets to the marsh, so that we're protecting that environment, but we're also cleaning up what is a pretty significant infestation of Parkinsonia. In the East Pilbara, Roy Hill Iron Ore, Fortescue Metals Group, Department of Parks and Wildlife, Pilbara Corridors and Royal Station are now all collaborating on a program to share resources and to ultimately eradicate Parkinsonia from the upper Fortescue. So it's a lot of money, $1.1 million directly into on-ground weed management programs. But I guess the big question is, where does all that money go? Our most accurate mapping and data collection has been occurring over the past 4 years, with all the programs using simple GPS type technology that even the most techno-illiterate weed control contractor could understand and use. The image on the left down the bottom there, that is how we capture all the data, that unit is how we capture all the data we need to prove about how successful our weed management programs are. Over the past 4 years, the PMMC has worked with, PMMC is us, Mesquite Committee. We've worked with 11 different pastoralists targeting 3 main weeds, mesquite, Parkinsonia and cactus. In the 4 years that we've really been collecting this data quite solidly, we've undertaken 2,231 operated days of control across 90,000 hectares or 222,000 acres of land, and we've controlled an estimated 856,000 mesquite and 225,000 Parkinsonia. We've also had mechanical control occurring across about 9,000 hectares of what was relatively dense mesquite. Cactus has been controlled across about a 60-hectare parcel of land, or a number of parcels of land totalling about 60 hectares. The funding also goes towards providing a full-time local project manager based in Karratha, which in itself has cost challenges. Anybody been to Karratha lately? Anybody know the costs of renting in Karratha is currently, well, it's dropped a little bit now, but at the height of our program it was about $1,500 a week. So for a community group to be able to support a position in Karratha with $1,500 a week, yeah. So it's a big expense to have somebody based locally in Karratha. The money also goes towards encouraging investment in local best practice. For instance, our data capture technology there is simple. The units cost about $1,000 each, but they're providing us with some of the most valuable data we've ever collected in our weed management programs. They're also now being used by 100% of the land managers and mining companies undertaking weed management. We also help with innovation in technology. We are now using, we're now assisting in advancing improved multispectral imagery, detecting mesquite. We're also looking at using UAVs to capture images to detect Parkinsonia from the air. I guess in summary, for us, there are 4 keys as to why we have become so successful in partnering with the resources industry. I guess the 4 key take-home messages, if it's something that you're considering doing, is to use what you have. If you have one great relationship with a mining company, use it to create another one. Tell everyone what you do. Everybody loves good press. Resource companies at the moment especially love good press. So when it comes to being environmentally conscious and resource companies are investing in it, tell everybody you can. Play to your strengths, so don't deviate too far from your core activities if you are looking at partnering with mining companies. For us, it was an easy task to move into Parkinsonia management, similar weeds, similar control methods, so that worked for us. And finally, visual impact is everything. Take one visit to Marty Station, go for a drive through their mesquite paddock just once, and if you've got 6 trees on your station, I bet you the next day you're out controlling those 6 trees, because it is absolutely devastating. I guess finally, we're all invested in our projects for a particular reason, whether it's for our work, for our recreation, the security of our future, and our landscapes. I guess the most important thing is to keep our natural resources in the best condition, and we all need to work together to achieve this. So thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I remember Fred Chaney saying yesterday that you could go to the Pilbara and have an industry, but you couldn't have an economy. But here's a natural resource management economy coming out of that industry. So I think I'd probably rather have mesquite control than a haircut in. Question for Linda.
Thanks, Linda. That was an awesome presentation. But I'm wondering, so you guys have been doing it for 3 years now?
4 years.
4 years?
With mining companies, yeah, for 4 years now.
And are there any reports, or are you guys tracing the biodiversity and stuff and the effect it has on that?
We're just starting to, I guess, develop some programs to try and figure out exactly what... We know removing weeds is positive for the pastoral industry. We're now starting to look at more about what the effects of our weed removal on vegetation that returns. From our point of view, we don't want to see another weed come in, so we're going to start doing some pretty intensive studies on, or some pretty localised studies, I guess, on that. We're also now interested in whether our weed control is going to have impacts on the return, possibly, of some threatened species into those environments as well. So we've got a bit of that more diversity monitoring that we have to pick up, which is becoming increasingly important, I guess. I mean, the figures killing weeds is a good thing, but we need to know the longer term impacts of what they're doing.